Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thank you for making time for this. We have an interesting 45-minute session planned for everyone. Today, we are here to talk about the church properties in Singapore. Yeah. So we have present with us today myself. My name is Wei. I'm actually the Executive Director of ALPS, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what ALPS is all about. And also together with me, we have got Ping Bing. If you can just stand up very quickly. That's Ping Bing. That's the architect for the hub from Arc Studio. And we also have got two very distinguished panelists with us. We have got our chairperson, Pauline Goh, who's volunteering me to do the slides as well. And also our vice chairperson, Hong Lim, who is here as well together with us, okay? So maybe before we start, let's do a little bit of a straw poll. Has anyone here heard of ALPS before? You came for this. 2, 3, so 4, 5, 6, 7. Not too bad, not too bad. I think we've got a good, maybe 1/3 of the people who are familiar. Second question, straw poll. Has anyone heard about the hub project before? Okay, good. How many of you are still very curious about the hub project? Wonderful. Okay, good. So today's agenda will cover all those things, that I've just mentioned to you. Pauline, very quickly, So we're going to do a quick introduction of the Archdiocesan Land and Properties of Singapore, and then we'll go into a video. It's a very interesting video that's about 7 minutes long that talks about the hub project itself, or what we call the Catholic Hub project. And then we'll have Ping Bing to talk through us the design thinking behind it. And then finally, we'll have our panel discussion. Is that okay? Yep. So very quickly, we'll just give a quick introduction of ALPS. So what do we do? What is really the objective of ALPS, and what is the purpose of ALPS? First of all, we are the property arm of the Catholic Church in Singapore. So we are a universal church. We are one church in Singapore. So all the land and property matters all come under one umbrella and one organization that looks after it, and that's ALPS. Primarily, our mission is really to advise. Our role is really to advise as a curia to the Archbishop on all land and property matters. And we also undertake building projects, for example, the hub, and we also manage facilities that are ongoing. For example, you'll be familiar with, say, the Catholic Center is one of them that we manage directly ourselves. So what do we do? I think in essence, the way I would describe it is that we are really a custodian. The custodian of the land and properties in Singapore. And primarily, actually, in our constitution, there are 4 key roles that we perform. One is about compiling and monitoring. So what does that mean, right? So compiling, really, at the end of the day, testing. So compiling is really about the fact that we look after all the lands and properties in Singapore. We need to basically have a proper systematic way of actually keeping documents, of archiving them as well, to make sure that when people need information, there is a source that we can go to manage and actually provide all this information. Okay, let me see. Testing. Okay, this one seems okay. Sorry about that. As I was mentioning earlier on, one of the first object is actually to compile and monitor. So the second one is about how do we deal with property at risk and better utilization. What does that really mean to us? Property at risk means that properties that we have that perhaps is sitting on a leasehold land, for example. So, we obviously are concerned about it because it's not freehold. And how do we deal with it in terms of renewals and all that to ensure that it's actually timely activated in terms of renewals? I think that's important. And also about managing the properties properly in terms of facilities. Because if it's dilapidated, then what happens? And it becomes a property at risk at the end of the day. So the second part of the second object of ALPS is really to ensure better utilization. So how do we use spaces like this, for example? I think that's important because of the contributions that we've all made to make these physical buildings possible. We want to use it effectively for evangelization and for all that things as well. So the third object of our constitution talks about the fact that how do we generate income? I think generation of income is something that we don't talk a lot and enough of. I think going forward, there must be a way that we are able to sustain buildings like this. How do we generate income to basically pay for the maintenance, for example? It's very important. If not, then it becomes a gap that we need to fill up somehow as well at the end of the day. So something that we think about on a day-to-day basis, but there's also the strategic element to generate income as well. Because going forward, I think there are more demands on the church as well. How do we continue to fill up those demands as we build out the church as well in terms of the growing numbers of people? And how do we basically sustain ourselves in income to build those buildings and all that? I think the fourth is fairly straightforward. If the Archbishop asks us to do any special projects, we'll run with it when it comes to matters of land and properties, for example. Okay? So a very quick overview of the portfolio that we have in the Catholic Church. By my last count, we have got 67 unique land and properties in Singapore. Okay? So out of that, actually, a bit of a breakdown on that into three categories. One is churches. Some of you will probably be very familiar. We've got 32 churches in Singapore, right? And we've got 29 non-churches. Yeah, anything that's actually not a place of worship, we call it a non-church. And last but not least, we've got schools as well in the portfolio, right? So the other thing to just take note of is that as far as ALPS is concerned, as I mentioned earlier on to you all before, we also manage facilities, right? So these are some of the facilities that you may or may not be familiar with, but I thought it's good to just go through very quickly with you. One is the Catholic Center, which is in Waterloo Street. We've got the Catholic Archdiocesan Education Center as well in Highland Road. Yep, we have got the seminary. The seminary and CTIS is where you can do your theological studies, for example. That's in Bukit Timah at the moment, yeah? And then the fourth one is actually 199 Punggol. That's the ex-major seminary that is there. And currently today, we use it as a retreat place as well. The second last one is actually 206A. It's a single-story house in Punggol as well. And today, even as we speak, we are trying to repurpose that building to be used for church work, even as we speak. And last but not least is actually a property in Jurong West. So those are the ones that are managed directly by ALPS. Sorry, Pauline, before that, just one slide back. I think one of the things I also wanted to leave an impression with everyone is that who actually own this portfolio of properties, at least a majority of them anyway, is actually by the titular Roman Catholic Archbishop of Singapore, which is Trakas, as we call it as well. So that's something interesting that you may want to just take note of. Okay? So before we go into the hub, this presentation by Ping Bing, we'll run through a simple video with everyone to tell you a little bit more about the hub. Okay? Thank you.
Sound test. Very good afternoon. My name is Peng Bing. I'm the architect together with Belinda, my wife. We founded Arc Studio 20 over years ago, and we are super privileged to be the architects for this project, together with Hong Lim, our chief. Okay, so I think I just want to share that Belinda and I are super inspired by what Pope Francis has put out, the Laudato Si, and we have used that as a guide throughout our entire development and design, and we hope to develop this place into something that's very with integral ecology and deep sustainability to inspire and guide us for the design of the Catholic Hub. Next slide. The Catholic Hub is located in a very special site. This is just right next to MacRitchie. We have a back door that will lead you directly to the walking trails behind. So if you're thinking of doing something at MacRitchie, you can drop by here at the adoration room before or after your walk, do your little, walk with Jesus, and then come back to the site for a cup of coffee. So we are integrated into MacRitchie. And I think this is one of the most ideal locations in Singapore for a retreat center, for formation and prayer, right? Because we are so close to nature, but at the same time, we are just a short walk away from the Marymount MRT station on the south. This places us right at the intersection of convenience and a place of silence and tranquility. The site is currently used by St. Teresa's Home, and the building on the upper picture will be conserved in phase 2 of our project. For phase 1, it will continue running as a home. The undulating site, as you can see from the picture below, will be used to house a vibrant multi-purpose auditorium for 2,000 people with activities on top. I will explain the section. So this project is planned for 3 phases. This is a bird's eye view of the entire project, with the largest component, phase 1, on the top right that you can see, is shown in greater detail. And we will just, in our presentation, explain phase 1. Yeah, next slide. The overall master plan shows here has MacRitchie on the left and Upper Thomson on the right-hand side, just to orientate you. Phase 1 is located in the deepest part of the site, on the top left, which is adjoining MacRitchie. This phase includes the entire approach road that will wrap around the north and the eastern boundary, where the entrance is actually at the southeast. Phase 2 and 3 will comprise the conservation of the existing premise as well as the addition of more blocks to complete the entire project. We approach phase 1 from the east, where we have located a large open car park. Oh, this is the next slide. Yeah, you can see the large open car park. In phase 2, this car park will then turn into another office block with a multi-story car park. But for phase 1, it will just be an open car park. Next slide. Yeah, in this section, you can see that the existing topography is in that pink line at the bottom, right? So what we have done is we tuck the most public facilities on the lowest ground, but the level color in purple, this is linked with the existing chapel level. So from the existing drop-off, you can actually walk all the way through directly into the working space, and the public can drive around to the level below. On the upper level, we have located the retreat rooms, and we have created step gardens. So from the lowest gardens, and we have stepped them up, and each of these gardens will be programmed for prayer. Okay. Next slide. Yeah. We have worked with 4 major ministries for the past 4 months, and the architect before us, RSP, they have interviewed all the other ministries as well. So we have developed quite an extensive brief. This took quite a bit of time. We had to dissect all their programs and requirements, and figure out which areas could be shared. So the areas in blue will be deemed to be shareable spaces, and we call that the commons. Next slide. So now we will try to walk you floor by floor throughout the project. This is the lowest floor. Part of it is the southern part, as you can see here, is actually embedded in the ground, but the northern part is actually open up into a garden. On the lowest, this is the lowest and most public floor. This large auditorium opens into garden. We call it garden number 1 in the north, which is Stations of the Cross Garden. On the south, we have created 2 courtyards. Courtyard number 1 is the Divine Mercy Courtyard. Courtyard 2 is the Sacred Heart Courtyard. These courtyards will bring light and air into the deeper part of our project. So everywhere you go, we will have natural light and ventilation. The programming of these public spaces have been worked through with the advisory of Father Joachim, who has given us some ideas on the artwork that we can program this space with. And right on the southern edge of the plans, we have created all the back of house activities like kitchens and sprinkler tank rooms, bin center, recycling center. We have also included a space for people who volunteer here. So you have volunteer rooms, resting area, changing areas, hoping to make it very efficient and very seamless. The base mode for the auditorium is shown in the top left plan. It's designed for 2 input room, colored in white, and the 2 dining spaces colored in pink. So this is designed so that you can have your praise and worship band playing without affecting the input session on the other side. The dining spaces help to insulate the 2 input spaces acoustically, even with a large youth sort of rally happening. On the top right, you can see the plan for 2,000 persons. This can be a mass or a rally or a very big sort of event. On the bottom left, the plan can accommodate about 100 tables, banquet, with the prep areas and the kitchen supporting this. And on the bottom right, you can see the setting for 3 theatres, perhaps for Easter plays or praise and worship festivals, Next slide. This flexibility is enabled by retractable seatings and fold-away furniture. In between halls, we have this giant accordion partition system. This will retract into the ceiling mechanically. This will reduce the turnaround time between the different settings. This is an artist's impression of the auditorium. And like all spaces in this project, we have designed for value with a focus on efficiency, safety, maintainability and sustainability, but also for an aesthetics that's calming and that will bring you into prayer. And we hope to integrate everything. So this is a visualization of the dining room for 500 persons. The dining hall is designed to spill out into the covered zone, and it could also double up for overflow from large rallies. The table and chairs will be folded away, and we have designed cabinets on the left where these can be stored neatly when not required. So you can see the cabinets here on the left. The landscape design is intended to bring one into a contemplative time of kairos via movement, sequence, and order, and understanding of the effects on lighting and all that matter that affects how you feel. And we also use liminal art to program these spaces. These gardens can become pilgrimage destinations for our parishes and even for any Catholic visitor to Singapore. On this level, the next level, the halls open into the Stations of the Cross Garden. This garden is shaded by lush green canopy of trees, and we work with the existing topography to create a very unique walk. So on the right-hand side, there is a little ramp that leads you upwards into the Stations of the Cross Garden. And then as you come back down, you go through the Stations of the Light. And this is integrated in a very big loop, starting from the Annunciation all the way through the life of Jesus, and the Last Supper will be in the corner, and all the way. So I can imagine that you know, parishes can make this into a destination for their retreats, pilgrimages, and on feast days, we can have amazing feast location, outdoor location. Yeah, so this is a closer view of the 12 stations. The hall is actually on the left, so this is looking at our station 12 where Jesus dies on the cross. And this will form a major focus for the entire garden on this side. The next slide shows the Divine Mercy Courtyard. And Sacred Heart Courtyard is a unique and quiet space designed specially for this devotion, either by free and independent devotees or group devotion. So we create a canopy of trees, and underneath there, you can actually sit quietly in contemplation, or you can do group prayers. Yeah, this is a view of the Divine Mercy Courtyard. So the multi-purpose hall is on the right-hand side, and they open up into this courtyard. On the left, we have meeting rooms. The next slide. Yeah, so moving on up to the floor above. This floor is where the operations center of the entire complex is located. We have also office for ministries, meeting rooms, media rooms, rehearsal rooms, The offices are colored in brown and the rooms in pink. So the hall is actually very tall, double volume. So this is actually on the southern side is the mezzanine floor. Next slide. Okay, this drawing shows a diagram of the co-working spaces for all the ministries. We have designed 3 large precincts. The offices are in solid borders, while the shared spaces in dotted. Blue indicates the OYP precinct for the youth, yellow for ONE, and purple for CSC. The OEAS has its own private access and is located in a place next to the spiritual director's dwelling unit and the priest accommodation on the northwestern corner. So if people who need deliverance and exorcism, they can actually drive directly to that corner without affecting the rest of the retreat. We have assured that the acoustics there is sufficiently prepared for any any kind of exorcism. Okay, so there are meeting rooms and retreat rooms that can be adjusted between 50 per room to a combination of 200 or 300 persons. So sometimes you can have small gatherings, sometimes you can have big gatherings, very flexible. Considerations have been made for minimal musical instrument movement. So currently they have different sets of musical instruments. They will use it, then they will have to shift it another place, and shift, very leceh. So what we have done is created a room, like for example this room, we'll have a music room next to it. You can practice in there, but if let's say you want to have a praise and worship session here, you just open the doors, and you can include that into your space. So all of that are strategically located. There is also a cafe and co-working and breakout space for all. So all of us can use that space. This is and you can see, I will go through the different courtyards. So for the OYP, we have programmed a large play area on the top right. So this area is located where even if you start screaming during a captain's ball game or something, it won't affect the adoration room and the CSC doing a very, very silent sort of meal or something. So the kids' courtyard, and then we have a Marian courtyard so that the kids, in this Marian courtyard will be calmer. And then we have the adoration room, and I think the labyrinth corner. And over here on the right-hand side, this is part of our gospel walk. Next, all the meeting rooms, next slide, are equipped with movable acoustic partitions and foldable furnitures. So sometimes you want to have a meeting there, and sometimes you might want to have a open session for sharing, or just a family play time or something. So very flexible rooms. Okay, so this is a zoom in on the Marian courtyard. The sequence of outdoor spaces starts with the play lawn marked F on the right-hand side for campfires and telematches and such. There is a tree-lined Marian courtyard designed for youth breakout and Magi circle sharing. We also have created a Stations of the Cross and Via Lucis devotional path around the Marian courtyard. The central focus is the grotto for Mother Mary, behind which we have located the vestibule for the Perpetual Adoration Room. This is accessed by lift and stairwell on the north. Right? Behind the Adoration Room is a quiet labyrinth just outside the SD accommodation. This is a view of the Perpetual Adoration Room. The Marian courtyard with the Mother Mary grotto. The OYP input rooms are on the left, and the outdoor furniture designed for circle time and quiet reflection. On the floor above the offices, we have located the retreat rooms. This is accessed via 2 lift cores on the south and staircases through the courtyards. The youth rooms are on the east with their own private courtyard, and the ensuite rooms are located on the western side, wrapping around the entire site. We have a total of 510 youth beds and 222 ensuite twin beds. The rooms overlook the central rosary garden. This is the drawing showing the rooms. The ensuite rooms are designed for twin sharing and future-proof for triple and quadruple sharing. The youth rooms have 3 types, for 10 persons, 12 persons, and 14 persons. The twin sharing room are simple and basic, with very clean monastic aesthetics. No TV, but got charger. So you can still bring your own TV. Hopefully watching Padre Pio videos. Your youth rooms are micro rooms designed for interaction and camaraderie. And the rosary garden is designed for group rosary and individual walking rosary. You can start with an opening prayer in the chapel and end there with Mass. Can also have a little wedding ceremony for 50 people. This leads one, on the center is the rosary garden for like an arena style. And on the left is Our Lady of Sorrows. On the right is the Our Lady of Star of the Sea. So I'm just going to jump in a little bit on the detail. Next slide. Okay, this is the symbolism, I think. Hopefully, when we explain this, it sort of helps us to get deeper into our faith as well. So the rosary actually started as a way, like we see the church expanding. So the rose actually has petals that expand outwards. So this symbolizes how our church keeps expanding and the universe keeps expanding, right? So you can sit around and do the different mysteries in different decades. Now on the left-hand side, Our Lady of Sorrows is a 7-station rosary, which is very interesting. You dive into the sorrows of Our Lady, and in the process walk with Jesus to transform ourselves into a living sacrifice. So the flower for that is the lily, I think. So we have white flowers. So red flowers in the middle, and on the right, the periwinkle, which is like a 5-petal flower. There's the Star of the Sea, which is an evangelical version of Our Lady. She's like the star, and she sort of inspires us to keep going. And then on the small corner on the right, we have the saints that have a strong dedication to Our Lady. For example, Maximilian Kolbe, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and Saint John Paul. So this is a view of how we imagine the Rosary Garden to be. And right on the roof, we have 2 very special gardens with its own small little chapel. One is an Isaiah garden, and the other one is a Psalm garden. So the idea is the prophets have words of wisdom and encouragement, and these will fill up this garden. So during some of the contemplation, you can go up there and sit in the chapel, meditate on the Psalms or anything that comes to your mind. And then you can enjoy the evening. Next slide. Looking over the MacRitchie with scriptural verses of inspiration and encouragement everywhere. So you can also do a little game, ask the Holy Spirit to show you what you need to know most, and then you walk to the number, get a verse, come here and contemplate. So the whole space is like interactive and help you to discover the word and, you know, get nature infused into the project. Okay, that's all. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you, Ping Bing, for a very interesting introduction into the Hub project. It has taken thousands of hours, believe me, to get to those few slides that he has prepared for you guys. So thank you again, Ping Bing. Okay, so now the last segment before we leave, we've got probably about 5 to 7 minutes left for some Q&A. So I'm going to invite Pauline and also Hong Lim and Ping Bing as well to be involved. We are very informal here, so no chairs whatsoever. So if you do have any questions, please raise your hand, and I'll come to you with a mic, and perhaps you can ask a question. It can be about the hub, can be about ALPS, whatever that is relevant to this particular session. Please. Okay. Can I just go with the lady at the back first? Sorry.
So I have two questions. One for ALPS. So why, or is it under consideration whether all the churches in Singapore will be under the management of ALPS at some point in time? And the second question is on the hub, whether when you had designed, did you know that the original buildings were going to be conserved?
Okay, perhaps for the first question, we get Pauline. You want to help us answer that question?
Yeah. Right now, ALPS does not have sufficient resources to be able to support the entire archdiocese, including the parishes. So, working together with the Archbishop, we proactively support the archdiocesan-owned and managed buildings. The parishes generally are managed by the parishes themselves, but we support whenever there is a call for help. So that's how we are resourced. And I think if God provides, we will be able to resource upwards, at some stage to be able to properly support the entire archdiocese, including the parishes. So at the moment, support as and when required, as far as the parishes are concerned. And then to the second question, maybe Hong Lim, you want to?
I think for the hub, when we started off, we never thought about the conservation. Because, okay, for the project, we were trying to do a good design and also to see what could be the best, what we call plot ratio that we could get. Like build the best building, or even like in terms of the project, try to get the sort of like, I would say, future-proofing the site for the church. Because when we started off, I think the whole ALPS problem was that we were also getting a lot of pushback from URA. So, sorry, I got a bit emotional on this because I've been spending like 5 years doing this project. Sorry. But, okay, coming back to the project, I think when we started, we were told by URA that we were only allowed like to build one time the land area. But we, as a building committee, we felt that the long term is that 1.2 times is actually the ideal that we should get for the archdiocese. Although we don't need such a big project, But we could actually secure land that we could build for probably even for the next 10 years. So when we were actually negotiating a URA, they came out with this idea that the buildings were actually worth conserving. So we spoke to them, and there was a lot of concern about if you conserve buildings, what is the conservation cost? Because conservation is also a very expensive process. But we look at the buildings, most of the buildings are actually quite simple and rectangular. And conserving these buildings are quite different from the St. Joseph Church and all that we have in the city, where you have arches and all that, where construction costs could be very high. So what we did is we actually spoke to URA to say that, okay, if you want us to conserve these buildings, basically what could you actually give us some incentives? So one of the incentives that which why the project took so long is that we sort of negotiated with them to say, okay, we'll conserve these buildings, but give us more area that we can build for the whole site. So, you know, the whole site is actually very big. We could actually secure another like 200,000 square foot that we could build. Although I think like what Ping Ping mentioned, we don't need to build it in one phase. But the church may 8 years, 10 years later need more area. So we should from day one sort of try to strengthen that rather than just give it away. So it took us sort of like, again, the challenge is it took us 2 years to negotiate that. And eventually also, I think URA, if some of you all know the conservation department, it is also very difficult to negotiate them. Because I remember one of the session, I mean, I'm not complaining about them, but when we told them, okay, it's not gazetted, but they said we could actually gazette it tomorrow. So it's not something that is negotiable. But
maybe I can also add to that,
Yeah,
Hong Lim. It makes sense for us to also look at the conservation because there's a very rich history to the site when the Little Sisters of the Poor started operating from then in the 30s. So it made a lot of sense. And because we managed to get some incentives back. Sorry, I think we are being told that we have to be out of here soon, but we've got
sorry,
one question
Yeah.
from the gentleman. Yes, got it.
One more question, sorry.
Okay, I make a very quick one. When is the completion date of phase 1 and completion date of the entire project? And then one other question is, from what I see from this brief presentation, it seems that many units are going to come under one roof. So in that case, will places like the OYP, CSC, the current present land now will become redundant, and then all Catholic Singaporeans who want to participate have to go to just one address. Am I correct? Please correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I could answer also the completion, because when we look at the project, again, the challenge is that St. Teresa Home is sitting on the
Finishing
land,
already. Last question.
and they don't expect to move out until about 3 to 4 years later. So the plan is that actually they will move to the OYP premises in Lorong Lokum. But before they move out, we also cannot build. So it's a bit of a musical chair. But we studied the land after a few years, and we discovered that actually behind there's quite a lot of unutilized land. So the idea that came out with this phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 we built behind, while St. Teresa continues for the next 3 to 4 years. So when we complete phase 1, which is where St. Teresa is ready to move, they are still doing and reviewing their plans, OYP will shift into phase 1, and that cuts in well that St. Teresa will start constructing in the next few years at Lorong Lokum.
That's about 2025,
yeah.
2025. Then the whole completion of the whole complex We don't have an end date yet because I think a lot depends on whether we've got enough funds, etc.
Yeah.
But we're also looking strategically at what else is going to happen to the building that is going to be vacated by the other one, which is CSC. So that is under review at the moment. The main thing is, well, we need to be very good stewards of whatever assets we have now in our portfolio. So we want to protect them from underutilization and also potential of acquisition. So we need to be very, very, very conscious of that. But that's a very valid question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we've been chased out. So
Okay,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much for your time and for being with us. Thank you very much.